Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and my law firm assists veterinarians with employment contract issues. Today I'm going to talk about whether a veterinarian can break an employment contract. So I think the most important matter is to kind of define what break actually means. So do you mean can I terminate the contract, meaning get out of it if I've already signed it and have started? Yes. That's one way to think of breaking the contract. In my mind, breaking a contract usually means you've signed the agreement, but you haven't actually started yet. But we'll kind of take a look at both of those. So let's talk about the first one first. So can you break a contract? In any employment agreement, there's going to be language about how to terminate the agreement. So there's generally 4 ways to terminate an agreement. You can do it if the term expires and there's no automatic renewal. So let's say you have a 2-year contract, get through the 2 years, neither party has renegotiated an extension, contract ends, it's terminated. Next, by mutual agreement. So if either party is like, you know what, this isn't working out, let's move on, contract can end. Third would be for cause termination. So if one party is in breach of contract, doesn't fix the breach, then they will have the option of terminating the contract immediately. And then the last way would be without cause termination. And so that just means either party can terminate the agreement at any time for any reason with a certain amount of notice to the other party. In the veterinary industry, somewhere between 30 to 90 days is kind of a standard amount for without cause termination. So just because you're utilizing one of those 4 ways of terminating a contract, doesn't necessarily mean you're breaking it. I feel like breaking a contract means you're kind of not following the terms of the agreement. However, I also think many people think of giving without cause termination notice as breaking the contract. But if you're just following the language in the agreement and it states these are the ways you can terminate the contract, and then you follow those ways, I don't really think you're breaking the contract, you're just ending it. So yes, you can break the contract, get out of it if you've signed the agreement, have already started. You just have to follow the terms of it. Now, what if you don't follow it? So like, let's say you have a 90 days without cause termination notice, and then you say, I don't know, I don't want to work here anymore. You walk into the clinic, you say, owner, I'm done. I'm not seeing any more clients. This is it. And you give 1 day notice. Well, you're in breach of contract in that scenario, and then you could be sued for damages. So maybe lost profits, cost to find a replacement, short-term costs for a fill-in. These are things you could be liable for if you don't give enough notice as required in the contract. All right, so let's talk about the second way, and that would be, let's say you've signed an agreement, but you don't want to move forward with it. I think, in my mind, this is kind of the most common association with breaking a contract. So many times people will sign a contract either in their last year of training, or if they're doing some, more education or some kind of residency or fellowship. And for whatever reason, they don't want to go through with, or start with the actual employer. And that could be for a number of reasons. One, it could be some kind of change in health. Maybe there's some kind of health problem that is going to make it impossible for them to start with that employer. It could be a family situation. Maybe now you have kids, or you got to move back to be in your family. And then the third situation is you get a better offer and you decide, I don't want to take that job anymore. I don't want to pursue this opportunity. If there's some kind of reasonable explanation as far as why you don't want to move forward with the contract, I find most employers are pretty understanding. So, as I said before, if you had kids in the interim from when you signed it, there's some kind of health issue, some other kind of family issue that's just making you starting or moving to that job impossible. Just be honest with the employer and just say, look, at the time I signed this is what was going on. Things have changed. and therefore I just can't go through with the contract. And I appreciate it if we can just kind of wash our hands of this and move on. It's very rare that an employer would try to come after you. I mean, they can't force you to work, right? Like even if you sign an employment agreement, they can't. There's no kind of procedure for them to force someone to work for them. But there could be damages that they suffer, and so they could come after you legally, either through arbitration, if there's an arbitration clause, or they could litigate and go through that system. So I find giving them as much notice as possible and then explaining the personal part of it as far as why you don't want to start will kind of alleviate any of those problems. And most employers are fine just letting you move on. Now, the shorter amount of notice you give, the less likely it is that it won't be a problem. So if you give them, if you're supposed to start on Monday and on Friday you say, oh, by the way, I can't start, well, there may be a problem and they may come after you for that. It's also possible there would be language in the contract that specifically addresses this issue. So it may state, if you sign the agreement, maybe we've paid out some bonuses to you or some kind of stipend during training, that if you don't start, you'll have to pay us back that amount. Or there could be some kind of liquidated damages provision that just has a set amount, meaning if you sign the contract and don't actually start, you owe us $20,000, something like that. That's another way that it can be handled. So the last way would be if you just find a better job offer. Now, if that's the case, the employer certainly is not going to be understanding, and this could lead to a legal problem for you. There is just no employer that's going to be like, oh, cool, you got a better job offer, and you're just leaving us in the dark. No problem. So you need to tread carefully about how you talk about that situation. It's better to tie anything back to family concerns, personal reasons. Just stating, oh, well, this job offered me $50,000 more. It's a no-brainer that I take it. It's very unlikely if you come to the, employer that you sign the contract with and say, oh, well, this job is offering me this much more. Will you match it? Well, they're just going to say, we've signed a contract, man. Like this is too bad. We're not going to up our offer after you've already signed the agreement. If you can, I would stay away from kind of using that as the reason to not start. You just kind of have to go with your gut, but just stating to the employer, oh, I'm getting paid more, so I'm taking that job usually isn't going to fly. So can a vet break a contract? Certainly, but there could be some repercussions that they have to think about. Well, if you have any questions about your employment contract, you can always contact my law firm at the phone number listed below in the description, or you can reach us through our website, chellelaw.com, and I appreciate you watching the video. Thanks.